Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching the Today I Found Out YouTube channel, and in the video today we're looking at that time the inventor of Whac-A-Mole accidentally blew up his warehouse. Just before we get started, I will say that this video is brought to you by Squarespace. Start your free trial today at squarespace.com/brainfood and get 10% off your first purchase. It was a muggy late September day in 2013 when an explosion shook downtown Orlando, Florida. A warehouse on West Jefferson Street was the casualty. Police cars, ambulances, and fire trucks were already on their way by the time Tim Roth, a good Samaritan, was on the scene. As he searched through the rubble and debris for injured humans, what he found was something else entirely. As described in the Orlando Sentinel in the next day's paper, among the knockdown suits of armor, animatronics, old arcade games, clown suits, and broken lighted signs, it was as if Roth were in the Joker's lair. Fortunately, no humans were injured in the blast, but a wide collection of electronic amusements were destroyed beyond repair. For this warehouse belonged to Aaron Fechter, the inventor of Whac-A-Mole. The situation is perhaps made even more comical given that Fechter's other big success in the business world to date was the creation of the famous Rock-afire Explosion animatronics band, bits of which were now strewn about in the wreckage. After firefighters inspected the damage, investigators ruled that the blast was due to a ruptured pressurized fuel tank containing one of Fechter's latest things he'd been working on, an experimental fuel called carbohydrolum. Carbohydrolum supposedly burns cleaner than propane and is particularly well suited for cooking with. Unfortunately, beyond that, there's not much more information we could find about it. Fechter had been working to try to invent ways to use it in everyday life. So how did Mr. Fechter go from inventing the Whac-A-Mole to an animatronic band to playing around with experimental fuels? So in the mid-1970s, Aaron Fechter was a young, ambitious inventor living in Florida. Before the age of 20, he had already conceived of an idea for a small, fuel-efficient, three-wheeled car that he called the Jutter. When financing didn't come through for this admittedly expensive idea, he moved to creating a contraption that sucked up leaves out of swimming pools, an almost reverse leaf blower. Thinking this product was the perfect fit for the homeowners of Central Florida, he began selling it door to door. One of the people who opened the door knew a gullible, hungry kid when he saw one and contracted Fletcher to create an electrical control system for amusement park shooting galleries. When Fechter gave him his control system prototype, the man decided, well, he wasn't going to pay Fechter, but took the device anyway. This would not be the last time that this happened. After this, Fechter created his own company, Creative Engineering. With his new company, Fechter thought that he could get his Jutter prototype off the ground. First, though, he needed to raise capital. So he entered into an industry that was quickly growing in Orlando, designing and building animated characters for the amusement park industry, or as we call them today, animatronics. His first character went by the name Scab. It was a talking head with 4 movements. Fechter took him to the 1976 IAAPA, International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions convention in Orlando, in hopes of selling him along with a talking rabbit named Willy Wabbit. Scab to DJ's Oyster Bar in Tampa Bay, and Willy to Mystery Funhouse, who placed him in a display case at the Orlando International Airport to advertise their attraction. But it was another attraction that Fechter had at the convention that led him to invent once again, or perhaps more aptly to borrow a concept and invent his own system for making it work. The game that came from this would come to be known as the Whac-A-Mole. As Fechter describes it, the credit should actually be given to others, such as a customer of his, a carnival operator who he thinks was named Didnt. Denny approached Fechter at the convention and pointed to booth 13 with a bunch of Japanese guys. They were playing a new game that involved animals popping out of holes. As they emerged, they would whack the animals with a hammer. Denny wanted a game like that, but the Japanese guys' game was always failing, and business communication was tough because these guys didn't even speak English, so he couldn't even buy the game from them. In other words, he wanted Fechter to build his own version of that game. Fechter did exactly that, but just using moles instead of random animals. As for the internal mechanism, he invented the system of air cylinders that would push the moles up. He designed an audio tape-driven pattern that dictated the mole's timing, and he gave it its iconic name, Whac-A-Mole. Once completed, Fechter turned the game over to this Denny Denton guy, who turned around and sold the prototype to Bob's Space Racers in in Daytona Beach, which is still in existence today. In fact, on the front page of their website, it says creators and developers of the Whac-A-Mole. Once again, it seems Fechter was hustled out of his invention. Bob Casata, founder of Bob Space Racers, even called Fechter to Daytona Beach to get him to explain how the game worked. Fechter refused. Bob told him that didn't matter because eventually he and his team would figure it out. Despite this, he harbored no resentment towards Denny Denton or Bob Casata because he thought of himself as a rip-off guy anyway, stealing from Booth 13 at the 1976 IAAPA convention. Plus, Aaron Fechter had bigger fish to fry. And it turns out he was right. Fechter kept working on what originally brought him to the IAAPA convention, his animatronics. Creative Engineering Inc. continued to build unique, stylized animatronic characters that gave their neighbor Disney a run for its money. They built a Dracula, a fortune teller named Laszlo, and a jovial guitar-playing bear sitting on a stump named Friendly Freddy, who was CEI's first full-size animated character. By 1978, CEI was designing, producing, and building fully animatronic shows. This included the Santa Claus Revue, sold to Santa's Village in New Hampshire, Confederate Critter Show, sold to Magic World in Tennessee, and the Wolfpack 5, a concept Fechter came up with after seeing a live London performance of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The Wolfpack 5 played 1950s-style rock and roll and consisted of Wolfman, Fats Gorilla, Dingo Star, Beach Bear, and Queenie. They would later be the basis, along with the country song-singing Hard Luck Bears, for the show that would make Fechter both rich and famous. All of this caught the eye of one of the founders of Atari, Nolan Bushnell, and hotel chain owner Bob Brock. In 1977, Bushnell had created Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time in San Jose, California. The restaurant was essentially meant to be a family arcade or eatery. At the time, arcade games were frequently found in bars, which weren't accessible to young kids. Bushnell would attend the IAAPA convention, and he really admired Fechter's artistic sense. CEI shows, while nothing technologically beyond what Bushnell could do, had a real sense of playfulness, and the characters had a very distinctive style to them. Bushnell made several offers to buy CEI outright, but Fechter refused and seemingly didn't care for Bushnell. Meanwhile, Bob Brock, who had put down significant financing into Bushnell's Chuck E. Cheese, became concerned that the entertainment being provided by Bushnell wasn't good enough. When Brock went to Orlando to check out Fechter and CEI, he now saw why Bushnell wanted desperately to buy CEI. But as Fechter had no interest in working with Bushnell, this left Brock in something of a pickle. He still thought the mini amusement park-like restaurant idea was a great one, but felt Fechter's work in the hands of any competing restaurant could put Chuck E. Cheese's out of business. So, rather than wait for that competitor to come along, he became it. Brock pitched Fechter his idea for his own restaurant for kids. That meant pizza, soda, video, and arcade games, just like Chuck E. Cheese Pizza Time, but what would separate them would be CEI developing and designing other forms of entertainment. To do that, he was willing to give Fechter 20% of his new company. He also wanted every restaurant to have the same entertainment, the same show. Fechter admitted in a 1982 article that each individualized character took 6 months to design, build, and sell. On top of that, the maintenance of each one, with its unique moving parts and different audio tracks, was quite expensive. So to have an opportunity to essentially mass-produce the same characters and the same show would cut down on all of this expense and time, while drastically increasing his profit. It was a perfect dream opportunity, and Brock and Fechter went into business together. The first ShowBiz Pizza place in Kansas City opened its doors on March 3, 1980, with Fats Gorilla, Dingo Star, and the rest of the Wolfpack 5 providing the entertainment. The Wolfpack 5 was only used at the first pizza place because that's what CEI had in stock. They had the intention to create a unique show and all new characters for ShowBiz. Thus, in July of 1980, at ShowBiz Pizza Place's second location in Jacksonville, Florida, the Rock-afire Explosion debuted. Considered the greatest animatronic rock band of all time, the Rock-afire Explosion consisted of Fats Geronimo, basically Fats Gorilla's brother, drummer Duke LaRue, Mitzi Mozzarella, Billy Bob Broccoli, the nephew of Friendly Freddy, Beach Bear, and Looney Bird. Meanwhile, with the launch of ShowBiz Pizza Place, which was exactly like Chuck E. Cheese's, but with CEI's animatronics, Bushnell sued Brock for breach of contract. After settlements and both companies coexisting for several years, Bushnell's Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time filed for bankruptcy, and ShowBiz bought them out. From 1980 until 1992, the Rock-afire Explosion at ShowBiz Pizza Place entertained, and occasionally frightened, a whole generation of wide-eyed kids. They were so beloved that a documentary was produced in 2008 called The Rock-afire Explosion. By 1992, both ShowBiz Pizza and Chuck E. Cheese were struggling. Changes needed to be made. Rock wanted to buy Fetcher's 20% of the company and all rights to the characters. Fechter said okay to the 20%, but refused to sell his characters. Late in 1992, The Rock-afire Explosion was permanently replaced by Chuck E. Cheese characters. Since then, Fechter has continued to do what he loves, inventing, only nothing has quite panned out yet. For instance, in the early 1990s, he spent $1.5 million inventing the anti-gravity freedom machine. What did this machine do? Well, it's hard to tell from the name, but it was actually a device made for doing one thing and one thing only: sending and receiving electronic messages. Needless to say, such a device quickly became outdated. As he stated, "The internet put me out of business." Despite a string of what some might call failures culminating in the explosion at his warehouse, he remains positive about his work. As he stated shortly after the explosion, "I put a lot of money in inventions that didn't pan out. I don't say I wasted it. That's like saying you wasted money going fishing. I spent it." So I really hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this one is brought to you by Squarespace. Now, you've probably heard of Squarespace. I certainly had heard of Squarespace before they came to us about sponsoring a video. You know, they're a big company out there, and they make super easy to make, or they make it easy for you to make, an incredibly good-looking website for yourself. So whether you got a band, whether you got a business idea, whether you got a YouTube channel that you want to get started, you probably want a website to go with that, and this is where Squarespace comes in. You don't have to spend ages getting it set up. You can just go to squarespace.com/brainfood to get started. You get 10% off. What you do when you get there, you can view some previews. There are all these beautiful templates. You just click on one you like, you sign up, and if you've gone through squarespace.com/brainfood, BRAINFOOD, you get 10% off and you help support us. So that would be awesome if you did that. Find a beautiful template, sign up, you make your website, super easy to customize, and you're done. It is really that easy. Now, I've made websites before, and I hadn't made them previously on Squarespace. I had made them on a platform that we will call WordDress. And it was really hard to get set up. There's all sorts of things that a non-technical person like me will stumble over, and then they have these constant updates going on, which I never really understand. And actually, earlier in this year, some Russian hacker broke into my site, and then I had to pay $100 for someone to fix this, which was awesome. None of those problems with Squarespace. And if you do run into any troubles, which you won't run into, they have 365 24/7 support. And I'm always skeptical about this stuff because I've been with web hosts, and their support is one of those things where you go in there and it's like, your wait time is 38 minutes, and then they play you some Bach or something, and you're just like, all right, come on, and then it's not actually very helpful. So I'm recording this video on Easter Monday. My computer's over there, that's why I'm pointing that way. And I was like, I'm gonna test this. So I go onto Squarespace and I click that support button, and in 5 seconds, I'm not even joking, I was connected with a real person, screenshot maybe here. Anyway, Wilson, the support guy, was just like super polite and super helpful, so that was great. Thanks, Wilson. I'm sorry for wasting your time. But yeah, Squarespace, great support that you probably won't need. Make a website, ultra easy. Do it with Squarespace. Why not? And remember, squarespace.com/brainfood, 10% off, and you help support Today I Found Out, which would be awesome of you. So yeah, squarespace.com/brainfood. Thank you for watching.